Narrated by Patricia Williams, age 68. My name is Patricia, and I'm about to tell you how I spent almost a year living in my son's garage while he and his family enjoyed the comfort of the house I helped them buy. This is a story about boundaries, self-respect, and what happens when you finally realize that being a good mother doesn't mean accepting whatever scraps your children throw your way. It all started 18 months ago when my son Michael called me with exciting news. He and his wife Jennifer had decided to do major renovations on their house. The house I had helped them buy 5 years earlier when they were struggling financially. "Mom, we're finally going to fix up the kitchen and add that extra bathroom," Michael said, his voice full of enthusiasm. Jennifer's been dreaming about this renovation for years. I was happy for them. After my husband died 3 years ago, I had used a portion of his life insurance money to help Michael and Jennifer with their down payment. At the time, they promised I would always have a place in their home if I needed it. "That sounds wonderful, dear," I told him. "How long do you think the renovation will take?" "The contractor says about 4 months, but you know how these things go. Maybe 6 months at the outside." I was living in a small apartment across town at the time. It was adequate for my needs. But I was getting older, and the stairs were becoming difficult. Michael and Jennifer had mentioned several times that I should consider moving in with them permanently. "The thing is, Mom," Michael continued, "the renovation is going to be pretty disruptive. We're basically gutting the kitchen and one of the bathrooms. There's going to be dust everywhere, no working kitchen. Workers coming and going all day." "That does sound challenging with little Emma," I said, thinking of my 5-year-old granddaughter. "Exactly. So Jennifer and I were talking, and we wondered if you might want to come stay with us during the renovation. You know, help us out by watching Emma while we deal with all the chaos." My heart warmed. They needed me. After feeling somewhat lost since my husband's death, the idea of being useful to my family again was appealing. "I'd love to help," I said immediately. "Great. There's just one small thing. With all the renovation mess, the guest room is going to be unusable. But we've got the garage pretty well set up. We can put a bed out there, get you a space heater, make it comfortable. It would just be temporary, just until the renovation is done." The garage. I paused, trying to process what he was suggesting. "You want me to sleep in the garage?" "Just temporarily, Mom. And it's not like a regular garage. We don't even park cars in there anymore. It's more like a bonus room. We'll make it really comfortable for you." I felt a flutter of unease, but I pushed it down. Michael needed my help. Emma needed her grandmother, and it was just temporary. "Okay, sweetheart, if that's what works best for the family." I moved into Michael and Jennifer's garage on a cold February morning. To be fair, they had tried to make it comfortable. There was a single bed, a small dresser, a space heater, and a lamp. They had even put up some curtains to give me privacy. But it was still a garage. The concrete floor was covered with a small area rug that didn't do much to insulate against the cold. The walls were bare drywall, and I could hear every sound from the house. Conversations, television, Emma running around. "It's just temporary, Mum," Michael reminded me as he helped me set up my few belongings. "As soon as the renovation is done, you'll have a proper room in the house." Jennifer poked her head in to see how I was settling. "I hope you'll be comfortable, Patricia. I know it's not ideal, But with all the construction chaos, we thought this would be quieter for you." I smiled and thanked them. I was here to help, not to complain. The first few weeks weren't too bad. I woke up early to help get Emma ready for school, spent my days doing laundry, cleaning around the construction mess, and preparing meals in the temporary kitchen setup. I felt useful, needed. But sleeping in the garage was harder than I'd expected. Even with the space heater, it was cold. The concrete floor seemed to absorb all warmth, and I found myself piling on blankets every night. The sounds from the house kept me awake. I could hear the television, conversations, even the toilet flushing. "How are you sleeping, Mum?" Michael asked one morning, when I looked particularly tired. "Fine, dear," I lied. "Just adjusting." By March, we had fallen into a routine. I would wake up at 6 a.m. in my cold garage, come into the house to start breakfast, get Emma ready for school, and spend my days managing the household while Jennifer worked from home and Michael was at his office. The renovation was progressing slowly. What was supposed to be a 4-month project was clearly going to take longer. The kitchen was completely torn apart. There was dust everywhere, and the workers seemed to come and go on their own schedule. "These contractors are driving me crazy," Jennifer complained one evening. "They promised the kitchen would be done by now, but look at this mess." I looked around at the chaos. I had spent the day cleaning up construction dust, only to have more accumulate by evening. My back ached from sleeping on the thin mattress in the garage, and I was starting to feel the strain of the temporary living situation. "Maybe I should look into extending my apartment lease," I suggested. "If the renovation is going to take much longer." "Oh no, Mom," Michael said quickly. "We need you here. Emma loves having her grandmother around, and you're such a help with everything. Besides, it can't be much longer now." But it could be, and it was. April arrived, and I was still in the garage. The renovation had expanded. Now they were also redoing the master bathroom and refinishing the hardwood floors. The timeline had stretched from 4 months to 8 months, possibly longer. I was starting to feel the physical effects of my living situation. The cold, damp environment of the garage was making my arthritis worse. I was tired all the time from poor sleep, and I found myself getting sick more often than usual. "Maybe we should look into getting you a better mattress for out there," Jennifer suggested when I mentioned my back pain. "A better mattress for the garage?" I stared at her, realizing that she wasn't seeing this as temporary anymore. She was making improvements to make my garage living more permanent. "Jennifer," I said carefully, "how much longer do you think the renovation will really take?" She looked uncomfortable. "Well, we've decided to add a few more projects while we have the contractors here. It makes sense to do everything at once. Maybe by Christmas." Christmas? That would make it 10 months in the garage. That night, lying on my thin mattress listening to my family, enjoying their evening in the warm house, I started to cry. When had I become someone who could be housed in a garage while my son and his wife lived comfortably in the main house? When had I become so disposable? May brought warmer weather, which made the garage slightly more comfortable. But it also brought something else: perspective. I was in the backyard hanging laundry one morning when I overheard Jennifer talking to her sister on the phone. "Oh, it's working out great having Patricia here. She takes care of Emma, does all the cleaning, and we barely even notice she's around since she's out in the garage. It's like having live-in help, But she's not actually in the house. You know, live-in help. That's what I had become. I stood there holding Emma's small dress, feeling like I'd been slapped. Jennifer continued talking. The best part is, she doesn't complain about anything. Some mothers-in-law will be demanding the master bedroom or something, but Patricia just goes along with whatever we need. Michael always said she was low maintenance. Low maintenance. I had raised that boy, sacrificed for his education, helped him buy his house, and now I was low maintenance help, living in his garage. That evening, I tried to bring up the subject with Michael. Son, I've been thinking. The renovation seems to be taking much longer than expected. Maybe it would be better if I went back to my apartment. Michael looked panicked. Mum, you can't leave now. Emma would be devastated. And we're so close to being done with the renovation. How close, really? Well, the contractor says maybe another few months. 6 at the outside. 6 more months. In the garage. While they lived comfortably in the house I had helped them afford. Michael, I said slowly, do you think it's appropriate for me to be living in the garage for almost a year? He looked genuinely confused by the question. But Mom, you said you didn't mind. And it's not like it's a regular garage. We've made it nice for you. Nice. A single bed, a space heater, and concrete floors were nice. In June, Michael's brother David came to visit with his family. David lived across the country, and we hadn't seen each other since my husband's funeral. When David arrived and saw the renovation chaos, Michael explained the living situation. Mum's been staying with us to help out during the renovation. She's been such a trooper about it. Where is she sleeping? David asked. We set her up in the garage. It's actually pretty comfortable. I watched David's face change. The garage. Mum is sleeping in the garage. It's temporary, Michael said defensively. Just until the renovation is done. How long has she been in there? About 4 months, Michael lied. It had been 4.5 months. That evening, David came out to the garage to see me. His expression was a mixture of shock and anger. Mom, what the hell is going on? Why are you living in a garage? I tried to explain. The renovation. Helping with Emma. It being temporary. But as I spoke the words out loud to David, they sounded hollow even to me. This is unacceptable, David said firmly. You're their mother, not their servant. And even if you were their servant, no decent person would house someone in a garage. David, please don't make trouble. I'm helping them out. Mom, they're taking advantage of you. Can't you see that? I could see it. I had been able to see it for weeks, but admitting it meant admitting that my son didn't respect me. That I had somehow failed as a mother to raise a man who would treat me with basic dignity. After David left, things felt different. He had said he was going to call Michael and have a serious conversation with him about how I was being treated. I asked him not to, but I could see the determination in his eyes. Sure enough, 2 days later, Michael came storming out to the garage. Mom, what did you say to David? He called me and basically accused me of elder abuse. I didn't say anything to him that wasn't true. He said I was treating you like a servant, that no decent son would have his mother living in a garage. He made it sound like I was abusing you. I looked at my son. really looked at him. He wasn't concerned about whether I was comfortable or happy. He was concerned about how his treatment of me looked to others. Michael, I said quietly, how long have I been living in this garage? I don't know. A few months. It's been almost 5 months. 5 months of sleeping on a thin mattress on a concrete floor, of being cold every night, of having no privacy, no space that's really mine. But you said you didn't mind. I said I wanted to help my family. That doesn't mean I don't mind living in substandard conditions, while you and Jennifer enjoy the comfort of the house I helped you buy. Michael looked stunned. You've never complained. Would it have mattered if I had? He didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. July brought unbearable heat, and the garage became stifling. The space heater I had relied on in winter was useless against the summer heat, and there was no air conditioning. I lay awake night after night, sweating and exhausted. During the day, I would escape into the air-conditioned house, but evenings in the garage were torture. I started staying up later and later, dreading going out to my hot, stuffy sleeping space. One particularly hot night, I couldn't stand it anymore. I knocked on the back door of the house around 11 p.m. Jennifer answered, looking annoyed. Patricia? What's wrong? I'm sorry to bother you, but the garage is so hot tonight. Could I possibly sleep on the couch? Just for tonight? Jennifer looked uncomfortable. Well, the living room is kind of our space to relax in the evenings. And Emma might wake up and be confused if she sees you on the couch. What about the floor in Emma's room? I could just bring my pillow. I really don't think that's a good idea. Emma needs her routine. Maybe try opening the garage door for airflow. Open the garage door, so I could sleep with the door open to the neighborhood, with no security, no privacy, just to get a breeze. I went back to the garage and cried myself to sleep in the sweltering heat. The next morning, I woke up feeling different. The heat, the discomfort, Jennifer's refusal to let me sleep on the couch in the air conditioning. It had crystallized something for me. I was not a guest in this house. I was not family. I was free labor with a bed in the garage. I got up, got dressed, and instead of going into the house to start breakfast, I got in my car and drove to a nearby diner. I ordered coffee and pancakes and sat in the air conditioning thinking. When I returned to the house around 10 a.m., Jennifer was in a panic. Where were you? Emma was asking for you, and I had to call in late to work because I couldn't leave her alone. I went to breakfast. You can't just disappear like that. We depend on you. There it was. The truth. They depended on me. Not loved me, not appreciated me. Depended on me. Like a utility that was expected to always be available. Jennifer, I said calmly, I've been thinking about the living arrangements. What about them? I don't think they're working anymore. What do you mean? You've been fine in the garage. No, I haven't been fine. I've been enduring it because I thought it was temporary and because I wanted to help family. But it's been 5 months and there's no end in sight. Jennifer looked nervous. But the renovation will be done soon. When? Exactly when? She couldn't answer because there was no definite timeline. The renovation had become an ongoing project that could stretch on indefinitely. That evening, I asked Michael and Jennifer to sit down with me for a serious conversation. I need to talk to you both about my living situation. Mom, if this is about what David said... This is about me, I interrupted. This is about the fact that I've been living in your garage for 5 months with no clear end date, and I'm not willing to continue. Jennifer and Michael exchanged glances. What do you want us to do? Jennifer asked. The renovation isn't done. I want you to give me a specific date when I can move into the house properly. Or I want to make other arrangements. Other arrangements? I'll move back to my apartment or find somewhere else to live. But Mom, Michael said, panic creeping into his voice. Who will watch Emma? Who will help with the house? And there it was. Not, we'll miss you, or we love having you here. Who will do the work I've been doing? You'll figure it out, I said. Like families did before they had a grandmother living in their garage. That's not fair, Jennifer said. We've all been making sacrifices because of the renovation. What sacrifices have you made, Jennifer? She stared at me, unable to answer. Because she hadn't made any sacrifices. She had gained a live-in babysitter and housekeeper. I want an answer by the end of the week, I said. Either a specific date when the renovation will be complete and I can have a proper room in this house, or I'm making other arrangements. The next week was tense. Michael and Jennifer barely spoke to me except when necessary. I continued my routine of caring for Emma and managing the household. But there was a new energy in the air. I could hear them having urgent conversations in their bedroom. Conversations that stopped when I came near. Jennifer made several phone calls that she took outside, away from me. Emma, sensitive to the tension, kept asking me if I was mad at her parents. No, sweetheart, I assured her. Grandma just needs to figure out where she's going to live. Aren't you going to live here anymore? How do you explain to a 5-year-old that her parents think her grandmother belongs in the garage? I don't know yet, honey. We'll see. On Thursday, Jennifer approached me with what she clearly thought was a compromise. Patricia, Michael and I have been talking. We know the garage isn't ideal, but the renovation really is taking longer than expected. What if we got you a window air conditioning unit for out there? Would that help? A window air conditioning unit. For the garage. To make my substandard living situation slightly more bearable instead of giving me proper accommodations. Jennifer, I said slowly, do you think it's appropriate for a 68-year-old woman to live in a garage indefinitely? It's not indefinitely. It's just until the renovation is done. When will that be? Again, no answer. Friday came and Michael and Jennifer asked for more time. They needed to figure some things out, they said. But I had already figured things out. I had spent the week looking at senior living communities, assisted living facilities, an apartment suitable for seniors. I had options. More importantly, I had realized something about myself. Somewhere along the way, I had become a person who accepted whatever treatment my family offered without question. I had become so afraid of being a burden that I had allowed myself to become invisible. I don't need more time, I told them. I've made my decision. What decision? Michael asked nervously. I'm moving out at the end of the month. Mum, you can't be serious. I'm very serious. I found a nice senior living community, about 20 minutes from here. I can afford it with my pension and your father's social security. But what about Emma? What about helping us out? You'll have to make other arrangements for childcare, like other working parents do. Jennifer's face flushed. That's going to cost us a fortune in daycare. And there it was, the real issue. Not that they'd miss me, but that replacing my free labor was going to cost them money. Then maybe you should have treated your free childcare provider with a little more respect, I said calmly. The last 2 weeks of July were intense. Michael and Jennifer launched what I came to think of as their guilt campaign. Mom, Emma is going to be devastated if you leave, Michael said. You're breaking up our family, Jennifer added. We thought you wanted to be here, to be part of our lives, Michael continued. I do want to be part of your lives, I replied, but as a valued family member, not as free labor housed in the garage. We've never treated you like labor. Michael, I get up at 6 a.m. every day to take care of your household. I watch your daughter, clean your house, do your laundry, and prepare your meals. And I sleep in your garage. If that's not being treated like help, what is? They tried a different approach. Promises. What if we set up the basement for you instead? Jennifer suggested. It would be more private than the garage. The basement. Another substandard space while they enjoyed the bedrooms upstairs. What if we give you a timeline? Michael offered. The renovation will definitely be done by Christmas. You've given me timelines before. They've all been wrong. This time is different. But I was different too. I was no longer willing to accept promises and maybes. I had learned to value myself enough to demand actual respect. One evening, while I was packing my belongings in the garage, I overheard Michael and Jennifer having an argument in the kitchen. This is all your fault, Jennifer was saying. You should have handled your mother better. How is this my fault? You're the one who insisted she couldn't sleep in the house. Because I didn't want her in our space all the time. I thought she'd be happy to help out and not ask for much. Well, now she's leaving, and we're going to have to pay for full-time daycare. Do you know how much that costs? Maybe we can find a cheaper babysitter. It's not just the babysitting, Jennifer. She does everything around here. We're going to have to hire a housekeeper too. I stood in the garage, listening to them discuss me like a household appliance that was breaking down. There was no mention of missing me, of loving me, of valuing our relationship. Just anger about the inconvenience and expense my departure would cause. At that moment, any lingering doubts I had about my decision disappeared completely. August 1st was moving day. I had arranged for a small moving truck, and David had flown in to help me move. He was still furious about how I had been treated. I can't believe they let you live in that garage for 6 months, he said as we loaded my few belongings. Almost 6 months, I corrected. Mom, I'm so sorry I didn't intervene sooner. I should have insisted you come stay with us. David, you have your own family and your own life. I needed to figure this out for myself. Michael and Jennifer were both home, but staying inside the house. Emma, however, came out to say goodbye. She was crying. Grandma, why can't you stay here? I knelt down to her level. Because Grandma needs her own special place to live, sweetie. But I'll still see you all the time. You can come visit me in my new home. But I don't want you to go. My heart broke a little, but I hugged her tight. I love you very much, Emma. That will never change. As we drove away, I didn't look back at the house. But I did feel a sense of freedom I hadn't experienced in months. Sunset Manor Senior Living Community was a revelation. I had my own studio apartment with a full bathroom, a kitchenette, and a beautiful view of the garden. There were common areas for socializing, organized activities, and meal options if I didn't want to cook. Most importantly, I was treated with respect. The staff called me Mrs. Williams, asked about my preferences, and treated me like a valued resident rather than a burden to be accommodated. "How are you settling in?" asked Marie, the activities coordinator, during my first week. "Wonderfully," I said, and I meant it. I had my own space, my own schedule, my own life again. I could sleep in if I wanted, or get up early and enjoy coffee in the garden. I could watch my own TV shows, eat meals when I was hungry, and have privacy when I needed it. The other residents were welcoming, and I quickly made friends with several women my age who had similar stories of family dynamics that had led them to choose independent living. "My daughter wanted me to move in with her too," said Dorothy, a woman I met in the library. "But she wanted me to babysit her 3 kids and do all the housework while she worked. When I said I'd rather live independently, she accused me of not loving my grandchildren." "How did you handle that?" I told her that loving my grandchildren didn't mean I had to sacrifice my own dignity and independence. I can love them and still expect to be treated with respect. These conversations were enlightening. I wasn't the only mother who had been made to feel guilty for having boundaries with adult children. For the first month after I moved out, I had very little contact with Michael and Jennifer. I called to check on Emma and to arrange visits, but the conversations were tense and brief. "How's Emma adjusting to daycare?" I asked during one call. "Fine," Michael said curtly. "It's expensive, but we're managing. I'd love to have her over for an afternoon this weekend." "We'll see. We're pretty busy." It was clear that they were punishing me for leaving. The message was obvious. If I wasn't going to be their live-in help, then I didn't get to be a grandmother. This hurt, but it also confirmed that I had made the right decision. They valued me for what I could do for them, not for who I was. I decided to give them space and time to adjust to the new reality. I sent Emma cards and small gifts, but I didn't push for visits if they weren't welcome. 6 weeks after I moved out, I got an unexpected call from Jennifer's sister, Carol. "Patricia, this is Carol. Jennifer's sister. I hope you don't mind me calling." "Of course not, Carol. How are you?" I'm concerned. Jennifer has been complaining to me about you moving out, and some of the things she's saying don't add up." "What do you mean?" Carol was quiet for a moment. "She's telling people that you abandoned the family, that you chose to move to a senior home instead of staying to help with Emma. But she's not mentioning that you were living in the garage." "I see." "Patricia, is it true that they had you sleeping in the garage for months?" I confirmed that it was true. That's awful. I had no idea. Jennifer made it sound like you had a nice setup in the guest room." Carol went on to tell me that Jennifer had been painting herself as the victim, the poor daughter-in-law whose mother-in-law had abandoned the family in their time of need. "I just wanted you to know that not everyone is buying her version of the story. and I wanted to apologize for my family's behavior. That phone call meant more to me than Carol probably realized. It confirmed that my perspective wasn't skewed, that any reasonable person would see my treatment as inappropriate. 2 months after I moved out, Emma asked to visit me. Michael reluctantly agreed to drop her off for a Saturday afternoon. Emma was fascinated by my new home. "Grandma, this is so pretty. You have your own kitchen." "I do. Would you like to help me make cookies?" We spent the afternoon baking, playing games, and talking. Emma seemed happier and more relaxed than I had seen her in months. "Grandma, why did you move away from our house?" I chose my words carefully. "Because Grandma needed her own space, sweetie. Sometimes grown-ups need to live in their own homes. But Mommy says you didn't want to help us anymore." My heart clenched. "Emma, I will always want to help you and your family. But Grandma also needs to take care of herself." "Were you sad living in the garage?" Out of the mouths of babes. A 5-year-old could understand what her parents couldn't. That living in a garage wasn't appropriate. "Sometimes I was sad, yes." "I'm glad you're not sad anymore, Grandma." When Michael came to pick her up, Emma was reluctant to leave. "Can I come back next week, Grandma?" "If your parents say it's okay." Michael looked uncomfortable, but agreed to regular visits. 3 months after I moved out, I got a call from Michael. His tone was different, less hostile, more uncertain. "Mom, can we talk? I mean, really talk?" "Of course, Michael. Could I come visit you sometime this week?" He came over on a Thursday evening. I made dinner, and we sat in my small but comfortable living space. "Mom, I've been doing a lot of thinking since you moved out." "Oh?" "Jennifer and we've been struggling. Emma misses you terribly. The house is always a mess because we're both working, and we don't have time to keep up with everything. We're spending a fortune on childcare and housekeeping." I listened without commenting. "But it's not just the practical stuff," he continued. "Emma keeps asking when you're coming back. She wants to know why you don't live with us anymore." "What do you tell her?" Michael looked ashamed. "We've been telling her that you chose to move away. But yesterday, she asked Jennifer why you had to sleep in the garage if you were part of our family." I waited. "Mum, I think we treated you badly. I think we took you for granted." It was the first acknowledgement I had received that my treatment had been inappropriate. "Thank you for saying that, Michael. I keep thinking about what David said, about how we were treating you like a servant instead of like family. At first, I was angry about it, but now, I think he was right." We talked for 2 hours that evening. Michael told me about the stress he and Jennifer had been under, how they had convinced themselves that I didn't mind the garage because I hadn't complained. "But Mum, you shouldn't have had to complain. We should have known better." A week later, Jennifer came to visit me alone. She looked nervous and uncomfortable. "Patricia, I owe you an apology." "I appreciate that, Jennifer. I've been thinking a lot about the past year, and I realized that I didn't treat you with the respect you deserved." She was crying now. "I was so stressed about the renovation and work and everything, and it was so easy to just let you take care of everything. I didn't think about how hard it must have been for you, sleeping out there not having any real space of your own." "It was hard," I admitted. I know now that what we did was wrong. And I'm sorry, not just because we miss your help, though we do, but because you're family, and we should have treated you like family. It was the apology I had been waiting for, though I hadn't realized it until I heard it. Jennifer, I never wanted to make things difficult for you and Michael. I just wanted to be treated with basic dignity. You deserved that. You deserved so much better than what we gave you. We talked for a long time that day. Jennifer told me about her own fears and stresses, how she had grown up in a family where boundaries weren't respected, and how she had unconsciously recreated those patterns. My mother always told me that family helps family, no matter what. I thought that meant you would just accept whatever we needed from you. Family should help family, I agreed. But it should go both ways, and it should be respectful. Over the following months, Michael, Jennifer, and I slowly built a new relationship. They finished their renovation. It took almost a full year, just as I had predicted, and invited me to see the results. The house was beautiful. The new kitchen was spacious and modern. The bathrooms were luxurious, and everything was exactly as they had envisioned. It looks wonderful, I told them sincerely. Mom, Michael said hesitantly, now that it's done, would you consider moving back in? We could give you the guest room, make it really nice for you. I looked around at the beautiful house, the house I'd helped them buy. A few months ago, I would have jumped at the chance to live there properly. Thank you for the offer, Michael, but I like my independence. Are you sure? You could have your own space, and we'd never ask you to sleep anywhere but in a proper bedroom. I smiled at him. I know you wouldn't, but I've discovered something about myself these past few months. I like having my own place, my own schedule, my own life. I like being grandma who comes to visit, not grandma who lives in the garage. Jennifer winced at the reference, but she nodded. I understand, and I respect that decision. Besides, I added, this way when Emma comes to visit me, it's special. It's an adventure for her. Establishing our new relationship wasn't always smooth. There were times when Michael and Jennifer would slip back into old patterns, asking me to babysit at the last minute, or expecting me to help with household tasks when I visited. Mom, since you're here anyway, could you just throw in a load of laundry? Jennifer asked during one visit. I'm here to visit with Emma, I replied gently but firmly. If you need help with household tasks, we should discuss that separately. It took time, but they learned to respect my boundaries. They started asking instead of assuming and accepting no as a valid answer. Would you be able to watch Emma next Saturday while we go to a wedding? Michael asked one day. I'd be happy to. What time should I be here? Actually, would it be easier if she came to your place? She loves visiting Sunset Manor. This was progress. They were considering my convenience, not just their own. As Emma got older, she began to understand more about what had happened during that difficult year. When she was 7, she asked me directly about it. Grandma, why did Mommy and Daddy make you live in the garage? I chose my words carefully. They didn't make me, sweetheart. I chose to stay there because I wanted to help the family. But I should have spoken up sooner about needing a better place to sleep. But it wasn't fair, was it? No, Emma. It wasn't fair. But your parents learned from that mistake. and now we all treat each other better. Emma nodded seriously. I'm glad you have your own house now, Grandma. It's much prettier than our garage. These conversations with Emma taught her valuable lessons about standing up for yourself and treating family members with respect. Lessons I wished I had learned earlier in my own life. Living at Sunset Manor introduced me to a whole community of people with similar stories. There was Margaret, whose daughter had expected her to be a live-in babysitter for 4 grandchildren. There was Ruth, whose son had wanted her to sell her house and give him the money while living in his basement. There was Helen, whose family had gradually taken over her finances and made decisions for her without consulting her. We all have the same story, Margaret said during one of our coffee gatherings. We raised our children to be independent, successful adults, but somehow we forgot to maintain our own independence along the way. The hardest part, Ruth added, is feeling guilty for wanting to be treated with respect by our own children. These friendships were healing. We supported each other, celebrated each other's victories, and provided perspective when family issues arose. When Dorothy's son tried to guilt her into moving back home to help with his new baby, we all reminded her that she had already raised her children and that choosing to remain independent wasn't selfish. You can love your grandchild and still maintain your boundaries, I told her. In fact, modeling self-respect teaches your grandchildren valuable lessons about how they should expect to be treated. The first Christmas after I moved out was awkward. Michael and Jennifer invited me for Christmas dinner, but there was tension in the air. Everyone was trying too hard to be normal. Emma had made me a drawing of me in my new apartment, with the caption, Grandma's Happy House. It was clear that she, at least, understood that I was better off where I was. Mom, we miss having you here for the holidays, Michael said as I was leaving. I miss some parts of it too, I replied honestly. But I don't miss sleeping in the garage on Christmas night. By the second Christmas, things were much more natural. I came for dinner, we exchanged gifts, and I went home to my own comfortable bed. It felt like a healthy family relationship. Thank you for dinner, I told Jennifer as I prepared to leave. Thank you for coming, and thank you for teaching us how to treat you better. It was a small comment, but it meant everything to me. My story had an unexpected ripple effect within our extended family and community. Carol, Jennifer's sister, called me several months later. Patricia, I wanted to thank you for standing up for yourself with Jennifer and Michael. Thank you for supporting me, Carol. It's more than that. Your example gave me the courage to set boundaries with my own family. My mother has been living with us for 2 years, and we've been treating her the same way, expecting her to do all the housework and childcare while we work. After seeing what happened with you, I realized how unfair that was. Carol had worked with her mother to find a senior community where she could maintain her independence while still being close to family. She's so much happier now. And our relationship is better because she's not feeling taken advantage of. I heard similar stories from other people in my community. My decision to leave the garage had given other people permission to demand better treatment from their families. 2 years after moving out of the garage, I was asked to speak at a local senior center about maintaining independence and family boundaries. Many of us were raised to believe that being a good mother, a good wife, a good woman meant accepting whatever our families needed from us without question. I told the audience. We were taught that putting our own needs first was selfish. I looked out at the nodding faces. So many women who had similar experiences. But I learned something important during my year in that garage. Love doesn't require you to accept disrespectful treatment. In fact, accepting disrespectful treatment often enables the people you love to become their worst selves. I talked about how setting boundaries had actually improved my relationship with Michael and Jennifer. How it had taught Emma valuable lessons about self-respect, and how it had given me back my sense of dignity and independence. The hardest part, I said, is overcoming the guilt. We're told that good mothers sacrifice for their children. But there's a difference between sacrifice and self-elimination. I had eliminated myself so completely that I was living in a garage while my family enjoyed the house I had helped them buy. After the talk, many women came up to share their own stories. I realized that my experience wasn't unique. It was part of a larger pattern of how women, particularly older women, are often expected to minimize their own needs for the sake of family harmony. 3 years after the garage incident, Michael came to visit me with a specific purpose. "Mom, I've been in therapy," he said. "Oh? Jennifer and I both have. We realized that our treatment of you was part of some larger patterns in how we treat people." He told me about the work they'd been doing to understand why they had felt entitled to my labor and space, how they had rationalized their behavior, and what they were doing to change. I realized that I had never really seen you as a separate person with your own needs and wants, he said. Even before the garage situation, I thought of you as Mom, someone whose job it was to help me and make my life easier. And now? Now I try to see you as Patricia, a woman who happens to be my mother, but who has her own life, her own preferences, her own boundaries. This conversation marked a real turning point in our relationship. Michael began asking about my interests, my friends at Sunset Manor, my activities. He stopped assuming I was available for babysitting and started planning visits around my schedule as well as his own. 4 years after moving out of the garage, I received an unexpected visitor. A young woman named Sarah knocked on my door, looking nervous. "Mrs. Williams, my name is Sarah Chen. David Chen is my father. He's the private investigator who helped you during your situation with your family." I remembered David mentioning his daughter, who was a social worker. "What can I do for you, Sarah?" "I'm working on my master's thesis about elder abuse in family settings. My father told me your story, and I wondered if you'd be willing to talk with me about your experience." Sarah explained that she was researching cases where elderly family members were housed in substandard conditions or expected to provide unpaid labor in exchange for housing. "Your case is interesting because it wasn't obvious abuse. You weren't being yelled at or physically mistreated. But the power dynamic and the housing situation created a form of exploitation that's surprisingly common." I spent several hours talking with Sarah about my experience. She helped me understand that what had happened to me fit into larger patterns of how society devalues older adults, particularly older women. "The fact that you were able to recognize the situation and extract yourself from it is actually unusual," she told me. "Many people in similar situations never find the courage to leave, or they don't have the resources to create alternatives." 5 years after the garage, Emma was 10 years old and had become a frequent visitor to Sunset Manor. She had her own group of grandmas among my friends there, and she loved the activities and social atmosphere. One day, she asked me a question that took me by surprise. "Grandma, when I grow up and get married, will you come live with me?" "That's sweet of you to think about, Emma. But when you grow up, I'll probably be very old, and I might need special care." "But I wouldn't make you live in the garage." I laughed. "No, sweetheart, I don't think you would. I would give you the best bedroom in the house, and I would ask you what you want for dinner instead of just making you cook whatever I wanted." Emma had learned lessons from our experience that would serve her well throughout her life. She understood that treating family members with respect and consideration wasn't optional, it was essential. As the years passed, my relationship with Michael and Jennifer continued to improve. They had learned to see me as a person rather than a resource, and I had learned to maintain my boundaries while still being a loving mother and grandmother. We settled into a comfortable routine. I had dinner with them once a week, usually on Sundays. Emma spent one afternoon a week with me at Sunset Manor. I attended her school events and birthday parties, but I went home to my own bed each night. "Mom, I need to ask you something," Michael said during one of our Sunday dinners. "What's that?" "Do you forgive us? I mean, really forgive us for how we treated you?" I thought about this question seriously before answering. "Michael, I forgive you because you learned from the experience. You changed your behavior. You acknowledged the harm you caused. And you've worked to rebuild our relationship on better terms. But do you trust us?" "I trust you to respect my boundaries now, yes. It took time to rebuild that trust, but you've earned it back." Jennifer nodded. "We know we can never undo that year, Patricia, but we're grateful you gave us a chance to do better." I'm 73 years old now, and I've been living independently at Sunset Manor for 5 years. It was the best decision I ever made for myself, and ultimately for my family. Emma is 11 now, and she's growing up with a healthy understanding of boundaries and respect. She sees that Grandma is a person with her own life, not just someone who exists to serve the family's needs. Michael and Jennifer have become better people through this experience. They've learned to value relationships over convenience, to ask instead of assume, and to treat family members as individuals worthy of respect. My friends at Sunset Manor often ask me how I found the courage to leave that garage. The truth is, I almost didn't. I came very close to accepting that situation as my lot in life. But somewhere deep inside, a voice told me that I deserved better. That voice had been silenced for many years by guilt, by the fear of being seen as difficult, by the belief that good mothers don't have needs of their own. The year I spent in that garage taught me that you can't love someone else properly if you don't love yourself enough to demand basic dignity. When I accepted substandard treatment, I wasn't just hurting myself. I was enabling my family to become people they shouldn't be. Today, I have my own beautiful space, my own schedule, my own friends and activities. I have a healthy relationship with my son and his family, one based on mutual respect rather than obligation and guilt. Emma still asks to spend the night at my apartment sometimes, and when she does, I make up the sofa bed in my living room, and we have wonderful girls' nights together. But she sleeps on a real bed with real sheets and pillows, because that's how you treat people you love. When Emma is older, I'll tell her the full story of her grandmother's year in the garage. I'll tell her that sometimes loving someone means refusing to accept treatment that diminishes your dignity. I'll tell her that it's possible to be kind and generous while still maintaining boundaries. Most importantly, I'll tell her that she should never, ever settle for sleeping in someone's garage, literally or metaphorically, just because she's afraid of being alone. Because I learned something important during those cold nights on that thin mattress. Being alone is better than being with people who don't value you. And once you truly understand your own worth, you'll never accept less than you deserve again.